Recording is on. All right. Thank you guys for joining session 3 of ServiceNow Basics, 18th of July. Lovely morning. And the topics that we'll be covering today are on your screen now. I'll briefly walk through them. First of all, a quick check. Raise your hands if you see my screen and you can hear me loud and clear. Okay. Thank you for those who have confirmed. All right. So moving on to the agenda again, the first topic is OOTB, that is out of the box. We discussed it in our previous sessions also. It means ServiceNow as a product, when it comes, is given by the vendor as it is without any changes that we make to match our requirements. So the raw system that ServiceNow provides us is called OOTB, that is out of the box versus customization. Then we have personalization versus configuration. Okay, that's configuration. Tables, dictionary, and relevance of XML, list configuration and personalization, form layouts, and then we'll have some quick question and answers. I'll share my developer instance. We'll quickly jump into the real time stuff. We'll see some action today. So give me a second. Let me share my developer instance. Okay. I'm logging into my developer account. From there, I'll open my personal instance. Hope all of you have already availed your instance. Make sure you do if you haven't done so yet. It's important that you go back and practice what we discuss here. Otherwise, it's not going to be of any use because it's important that you go and try what we discuss. So hope you can see my ServiceNow instance because I can see it on my other device. Right, lots been marked as, I don't know why, as favorites, but anyways. So first topic that we wanted to discuss today was out of the box versus customization. So we already discussed what out of the box is. So if I don't make any changes to the instance that ServiceNow provisions for me, that's what out of the box means. So I went back to the developer portal and at the bottom under the manage menu, you see there's an option to call reset and wipe instance. So what that means is if I do this, if I click on that, it's going to bring my instance back to the out of the box state. So any changes that I have made will be wiped out. So this is what we say out of the box. And out of the box, there's there are a lot of internal components that they roll out, and at times we have to change them. Things are working the way ServiceNow believe they should. Example of, very simple example could be uh, an email that goes out having a specific subject. My customers may not like it, I may not like it, I may want to change that. If I change that notification, that email, if I just change a single word on the subject, a single character there, that is considered as customization. So you're making changes to your version of ServiceNow. Okay, so that's customization. That's very small example. It could be as big as changing a very core behavior of the platform to match your needs. But we have to be very careful when we make changes to out of the box components, because when ServiceNow performs an upgrade on your instance, we discussed that ServiceNow releases two major versions every year: the feature releases, where they roll out a lot of feature, and also they enhance the existing features and they fix the existing issues as well. When they fix it or they enhance it, they are actually making changes to existing components which are there on your instance as well. And if you are making changes to them, the next time you upgrade, the upgrade system will not make those enhancements to that component, because it will realize that it's not the version they rolled out. You have made some changes and they respect that. They don't want to change it, because otherwise you'll lose your customizations. What they do instead is they mark it as an entry, and they skip it during the upgrade. At the end of the upgrade, you get a list of all components that have been skipped. So you can, as a part of an upgrade exercise, once the upgrade is done, you have to go and run through your skipped records to see what all has been skipped, and make sure you understand them and you accept them. So okay, they skipped this notification. They did something in the content, but I'm okay because I changed the content intentionally. I know I don't want that subject, so I can skip it. I can at the other hand, I can accept their changes, because I might believe, I never made a change. Somehow by mistake, I was trying something, I made some changes and then I rolled them back. But still, since the updated stamp on the record will show your name, system will not update it. So then you have to manually accept the changes that upgrade is trying to make that component which it believes has been customized by you. You can also merge new changes with your customizations, but that needs a little more detailed inspection of the component, comparing it. There are tools within the system which lets you perform that uh, easily, but yes, there's an additional step of manually doing a verification of the changes and then merging them uh, as you deem fit. So customizations are unavoidable. If someone says, we should not be making customization to ServiceNow instance, then that probably means they don't want to make any enhancements to the platform to meet their demands. They just are accepting it as it is. But uh, I would say 99.9% of the times there are customizations in the instance. You cannot avoid them. But a better way to do customization is to make a copy of a component which you want to change. Okay, deactivate the original component and just make changes to your copy, and that will ensure you always have at all times the base version with you. ServiceNow also stores version history at a component level in a related list. We saw the other day on the user record at the bottom, once a record is saved, at the bottom you see multiple tabs. Those tabs are called related lists. Those lists represent records which are related to the main record you have opened on screen in some manner. There has to be some logical relation. So there's a versions related list, a tab on most of the components, which shows you the whole history of how many revisions that component has gone through, who made those changes, whether that was an upgrade or whether that was a user. And you can always compare any two versions and see the difference between them. So there's a lot you can do with that kind of a version control. It helps a lot. It wasn't there in the very beginning of ServiceNow when it started, but eventually they realized it's important based on feedback from people. So feedback is important, and a lot of people gave many feedbacks, and that helped them improve their platform over a period of time. So versioning is there. So back to customization, as I was saying, you can make customizations. You are bound to make customizations because you want system to perform the job you want it to. If your tools should meet user demands, users should not be changing themselves to meet how tool works. So you have to be smart to sometimes strike a right balance between what customization you should be doing and what not. So you have to take a very uh, good judgment call there. I always I always welcome customization because that gives a person a feeling that we are acceptable, we are listening, rather than just telling them to stop the moment you see them. Don't do that. That will scare your customers away, and that will not help you grow. But always welcome the changes they want in the system. Do a thorough analysis of that, compare it with what is there, which is already properly doing what they want, try to offer that. If not, go ahead and make the changes. And you know that's what we want. We want tools to be more user friendly and to be more uh, easily operatable, if you like, by the staff. We don't want them to be having a challenge using it and always trying to skip it. We want them to use it. That's what it is there for. Hope that helps you understand out of the box versus customization. I'll show you a quick example here. So there are two things before I do that. Data and code. So data, I can have user data. I can have thousands of records, and I can keep adding them, changing them. That is okay. That's data. That's changing data doesn't mean customization. Sometimes people are confused on changing data. Is that a customization? No, it is not. But when you change any code or you change any designs, that is what customization is. So there's a very common component in ServiceNow called client scripts. Okay, don't don't you know try to don't try to invest a lot here in this topic. We'll go through client scripts in some other session, but at this point, I'm taking it as an example to explain what customization means. So, if I have just opened this component on my screen, and there's a message on the top which says this record is in integration commons for CMDB application, but global is current application. Click here to edit. What that means is in ServiceNow, you can have logical grouping of components and put them together under applications. So you can have multiple applications in your system. More than a logical group, it is a mechanism for ServiceNow to control how the components in this application will behave with components outside this application. So they run in a different space, in a different process space. So when process segregation is there, two applications can only interact if they have permissions to do so. So within ServiceNow, you can have hundreds of applications which will have certain limits, the way they can interact with each other. When I say interact, that means changing, make inserting data into tables of different application scope, or updating data, or executing some scripts, etc. So that is explanation of line one. Again, that was not my main topic here. The topic was customization. So at the bottom, if I scroll down, you see this versions list. Right now it is empty. That means nobody has made any change whatsoever to this component, and this component is out of the box version. I can always press, click here to edit, and this will open this component in edit mode. Ideally, you should switch to the application in which the component resides and then make the changes. You can switch applications by going on to the settings section, that is by clicking on this wheel on the top right corner. They call it cog wheel, cog wheel, settings wheel. So you can always go here, go to the developers section and switch your application. There are lots of application listed here. You can always go here and switch the application in which you want to work. So application was not a concept that was there in the early versions of ServiceNow. Everything was within scope of one application called global. So everything was in global scope, but then at some point they realized it's best to segregate applications which should have logical separation, and also separation in terms of accessibility. What can they do with each other? How, to what extent can they interact with each other? So this is a client script. Don't worry about all this. Our point was to show you a component. Go to the versions tab and see if at all anything is there. If I'm making any changes, okay, if I so all this, each field on this component is a part of the core, uh, core component. That does not mean I can only make change to code that will customize it. If I make change to any of these fields, if I even enter anything here, that is customization. So if I save it now, you see there are entries now at the bottom of the list, and the this is the current entry and that's the previous entry. So I made some changes and that has become the current entry, and the previous entry was out of the box when it was done and stuff. You can compare it. As I said, you can click any two versions and go to this drop down at the bottom. Okay, and then there's a compare option. You can click on that and it will let you compare these two versions of this component. So if you see, it has got all fields. So this was one field, that was another, this was the other field. So any changes system realizes, they put a blue kind of uh, background to that row. You see rest of them has got white background, but this one has got blue because you can clearly see there's a change. It was empty here, it has got some value on this. Okay, so I will go back using it, and probably I would like to revert. So I have to probably go into that application and then I can revert it. We'll cover it in some future session, how to really revert a component to base versions or previous versions. But at this time, hope you understand what customization means, how ServiceNow records that, and how is it different from out of the box concept. I'll come to the questions at the end of the session. So keep posting them on the chat, and we'll talk about them at the end of this session. The next topic is personalization versus configuration. So what is personalization in ServiceNow? So as you can make out from the word itself, anything which is personal to you, any changes that you make as a user which does not impact others. A quick example could be, marking these applications and modules as favorites. Right, so this is my personalized favorites. These are my favorites, and nobody else will see them in their favorites, because it's my personal uh, changes. This is personalization in ServiceNow, making such things, making things marking things as favorites. We'll go to the list of incidents, for example. So I've just typed incidents, or maybe better, let's go to users, because that's what we discussed the other day. So I'm opening the users module and I have this list of users. uh, I told everyone the last time that these are columns and these are rows, and rows and columns together make a table. and lists. So this is a list. I can sort it by clicking on any of the columns. I hope I demonstrated that earlier. But talking about personalization, look at that balloon call out that says me, personalized list. The moment I hovered over this cog, this wheel, it uh, it 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 brought up that balloon. If I click on that, it opens up another pop-up on the screen which has two lists, one on the left and then one on the right with some arrows in between and some arrows on the extreme right. What that means is these are the fields which are available in the user table. These are the fields which you already have on your list. You may choose to remove some of them, you may choose to add the others. So for example, I want to see who created them. I want to see their home phone number. I want to see their language. I want to see their last login time, and any fields which I think are of my use, and maybe I don't want to see who updated it. So I'm just double clicking to make things go from left to right and right to left. You can also use these arrows to make things move from here and there. You can use control and arrows to select, control and mouse to make selections, or shift and mouse to make selections. All pretty much standard Windows operation, the way you use Windows to select multiple files using control and shift. The same stuff works here. Otherwise, in HTML in lists, this is a very standard basic operation. So once you're done with your choices, you can press OK, and then the form will load. This list will load, and now you see those additional fields also which I just added. So this is personalization. I'm adding fields of my choice to that list because I want to see them when I load that list. System stores that as a personalization for that specific user. If you log into my instance as a different user, your list for users will be pretty much standard, the one which was there earlier before I added these fields. Also, if you see, if you notice this, this wheel is kind of a bit broken. You see it, one hand is gone. That means this list is customized, sorry, personalized. So the moment you see a list and the wheel is like that, that means you have personalized it. You have made some changes to the out of the box list layout. You have personalized to meet your needs. You can always again click that, and there's a button that starts appearing the moment you make any changes, which is called reset to column defaults. If I click on that, it is going to reset my layout, and see, it removed those fields which I added and it brought it back to the out of the box list layout, the columns which were there as when I was assigned this account and I logged in for the first time. This way you can add columns, remove columns from the list, but that is very much personalization. That's something which any user who's got a basic license to ServiceNow, not the end users, but a basic user with an ITIL license, ITIL license, can do that. They have this option. What if I want to make, if I want to configure it as an administrator? Of course, I don't want people to make changes on their own. They can, but I want to give them some smart basic point to start. This is a very basic layout. I want to make sure everyone at least sees, you know maybe 10 fields which I agreed with my customer, that the users will see these 10 fields on the users list to start with. Then they can personalize the way they want. So now we'll go into customization or configuration. So there's more of a configuration because there's no code involved as such. We're just configuring the system. Customization comes into play when you actually do some code changes. Some people might say, okay, changing list layouts is also customization. That's a debatable topic, but I prefer calling it configuration because it doesn't involve too much of coding. Now, how to do configuration changes or customizations to this list? So when we wanted to do personalization, we clicked on this cog, this wheel. As an admin, I can customize it, the list. What I have to do is right click anywhere on the header, on any of the columns I can right click, and I see these options because I'm an admin. A user who's non-admin will not see all these options. They'll probably see maybe top 4 or top 6, but not these. These are very much admin restricted. So if I go to configure option here, the configure menu, and then there's this sub menu called list layout. Okay, so it's important that we keep a note of columns that we have on screen right now. It's called user ID, name, email, active, created, updated. Okay. Now I want to change this list layout for everyone. Because I'm an admin, I've decided based on my discussion with my customer that the list will have a different set of fields. So I want them to see their names. I don't want user IDs maybe. I want to see their business phone, their email. I don't want them to see their active flag. Maybe I want to let them see the logged out flag. I don't want them to see maybe updated. Maybe I want to let them see who created their record. Maybe their date format, maybe their time format as well. And I want to kind of move the created and created by at the bottom. So now I'm done with the list layout changes. I have decided what fields I want to show to everyone when they first time log in. Then further they can personalize it to meet their needs, but I'm saving it now. Now this layout has changed, but at the same time, if you notice the wheel, it's not broken because it's not personalized. It is how admin has configured it, customized it for you. So it's not broken, and that means everyone by default will see this layout when they log in for the first time. You can try a couple of list layout changes, create multiple accounts, go inside them and see how that list layout looks to that user when they log in. So compare configuration, customization versus personalization. You can do all that. Right. Now coming to the tables, dictionaries, and XML, you might have noticed when I was doing the list layout, when I was changing the list layout, so there was this set of two list boxes next to each other. So in ServiceNow we call them slush bucket, SLUSH, slush buckets. So you'll hear a lot from people talking about slush buckets. So these are slush buckets. So when we first came here, I was using this slush bucket, but at the bottom, you see, a couple of other options. Let's talk about them. The first one is the view name. If I open the drop down, it's called default view, ITIL, mobile, and many more with an option to create new. What is a view? So view is representation of a particular list or form and giving it a name. So there's a default view. That means everybody who kind of opens that table in default view, they will see that view. So list can have views because when I go to lists, I see it in a specific way. When I open a particular record, this is a form. A form can have a different view, you know, and there can be many views of the form. There could be a default view, there could be a customer view, there could be a specific view which you created, maybe organization view or support staff view or service desk view. So views are just rearrangement of fields on form or on list, rearrangement of fields on form or list and giving it a name and then using them uh, the way you want to use them. Maybe you want to set a default view of a particular list for your users in a specific way. So you can customize that view. Making changes to one view doesn't change anything in the other view. Okay, so views are just ways of representing your lists and form in a specific manner. So if you click on the top, on the very top, these three lines, ellipticals, I think that's what they call them, And then you go to view, you see there are a lot of views here. There's a default view. I go to ITIL view. You see the set of columns have changed because this is an ITIL view. Of course, you can add, remove columns and you know, customize this list also, customize or let them even personalize it if they want. But this is a defined view. It's called ITIL view and it'll have only 3 fields. If I switch to mobile view, uh, it's kind of a different from the rest too. So views are just representing a particular list or layout in different manner. So when I went into list layout, I have this option of which view actually I'm modifying. So when I was moving fields here and there, the changes were made to the default view of the list. If I go to, say for example, ITIL view, you notice these list box refreshed themselves, and now we see those 3 fields that were there in the ITIL view. Any changes I make now will be recorded under ITIL view. Okay, so I'll just quickly recap that. A view is a way of representing a list or a form. It's a rearrangement of fields on a list and a form and giving it a name. ServiceNow out of the box comes with different views for each list and form. You can customize those views. You can create new views as well. So if I click on new, I can give this view a name. Say for example, SN session view maybe. That's what I want to call it. Uh, doesn't make any sense, but let's give it a name, and then maybe I want to make certain fields move here and there. And I save it. So that those changes have gone into another view called SN session view. You see that view is here. And if I click on that, these are the fields which I chose on that specific view. Now, why views are important? Because you want to limit or restrict what people see by default. You can also restrict them from even personalizing the list. I don't want them to see anything more than what I configured for them. On if I want them to only see these fields, I can stop them from personalization. I don't want them to personalize it. Okay. So how to do that is simple again. You right click on the header anywhere, and this time you go to list control. You don't want to go to list layout. You don't want to change layouts. Actually, you want to put some control here. So I am going to list control options, and there you have edit roles. You click on that and select who all can edit. I say only admins can edit this list, and I'll save it. So now only admins will have an option to change fields here, nobody else. So you can control a lot of things. My suggestion is to go and explore list layout and list controls today, because they are used a lot in system. You'll see lists everywhere. You'll see people talking about certain changes they want to make to the list. Not everything can be done. There are certain limitations uh, which you have to abide by. There are multiple ways of even achieving a single thing. So controlling the ability to let someone edit a list can be controlled through uh, you know multiple approaches. But try to play around with list layouts and list controls. Hope you understand the views now. And then you have a call, your set of fields at the right. It says create new field. So if, for example, you want to create some new field in that table. So we are at the users table. If I want to create a new field, I can create it from here. Give it a name, select the type of this field. So I hope you understand what type is. So every field has to be of a specific type based on what kind of data you want to store in them, whether it's an integer or you want to store a set of characters which goes into string, and whether it's a phone number which you want to have specific format to, whether it's password and other such things, it's an image, whatever it is, you have to select a specific type. There are a lot of types available here advanced type like audio and images, they're also there. So you can choose a specific type for your field. Based on what type you select, you'll see some additional fields like strings. Of course, has to have a length. Strings are alphanumeric characters and special characters, so you can put in a limit to that field. It's always good to make sure you wisely choose the length, because these lengths uh, play a very important role when it comes to performance of the instance, the speed at which it responds. Unnecessarily having long fields is just going to occupy more space on database, and it's going to definitely deteriorate your performance over a period of time when there are many records and indexing like operations are performed, and you have to pull data from the database. So make sure you choose them wisely. So you can create fields from here. Another option to create a field, another way to create a field is through the tables and columns, module. So I just typed tables in my filter navigator, so that I can shortlist these applications and modules. And if I go to tables, I see a lot of table here. So I want to search for my user table. So I'll do asterisk user. If I don't know the table name, so it's going to bring up all the tables which has got user in its name, user as a word somewhere. Our table is actually, I know its name, it's called sys underscore user. So if I open that, if I search for that, I'm able to establish it quickly. A quick way to find out which table your data is in is to hover your mouse over that particular uh, module and look at the status bar at the bottom. So it says https colon forward forward slash my instance name oblique sys underscore user underscore list. So this sys underscore user just before underscore list is my table name. Even when you click on this module, on the top location bar, you see the same URL. So this part, if you notice, has got my table name here. Just before underscore list, that's my table name. So if you want to see which table the data is coming from, you click on that and then find it out here in the location bar. This is called sys underscore user underscore group, and that's a label. This is the label, and that's the actual table name in the database. Similarly, if I go to users, this is the label users, and that's the actual table name. So going back, if I go to tables module and again try to search my uh, table here, and see I did not put equals here, so that means the default operator is starts with. If I place asterisk, it becomes contains. If I put equals, that becomes exactly equals to this. So these are shortcuts when you're filtering: equals, asterisks. I use them a lot. Maybe you'll also use them as you explore. You'll find them handy. So if I go to the tables record, I've opened that specific tables record, and now I see the table details. I see the name, I see the label. I can change the label, not the name. And then you see there are a lot of fields here, field names and types and other stuff. You can add more fields from here. So we added one from the list layout screen. You can also add directly from here. You can change any existing field if you want. Click on that and then make any changes you like. You want to make that field mandatory, check this box and save it. Next time anybody tries to create a user record, this field will be mandatory for them. Or you want to make that field display only. So you want to make them like this, where people see the value but they can't change it. You make them read only. So this is one way of creating record fields in the table. If you see at the top, this is called dictionary entry. In ServiceNow, every table and every column has got an entry in a table called dictionary, sys underscore dictionary. So dictionary tells you the whole database schema, including table names. So there's always one entry for the table, and then we have got multiple entries representing each column. So dictionary is something which you can use if someone asks you to share with them the database schema of your instance. You can use dictionary to give them that data. In ServiceNow, everything from the configuration to the code to your data, everything in ServiceNow is stored in XML format in database. ServiceNow uses, they used to use MySQL earlier, they now use MariaDB. So that database, your data, your configuration, your code, and everything and anything in your system is stored in the database in XML format. It is important to understand that they store everything as XML. So my data dictionary is also somewhere stored in an XML format. You can always see the XML by right click on the header of the form, and that applies to any record. Any record you open on the form, you can always right click as an admin and go to show XML, and it brings up a pop-up which shows you the XML fields. I'll share that. So this is the XML representation of that record, that dictionary record. It's just for us to understand that everything in ServiceNow is stored as XML. Data, configuration, customization, anything and everything. Coming back to dictionary, dictionary entry represents columns and tables. So if I go to dictionary module from here, I will see a long list of entries. So 95,812. So collectively, these are tables and columns. So if I want to search dictionary entries for specific table, I have to filter on that. So I have used sys is equals to sys user as a table name. So now I see 62 entries, and these all of them represent the complete user table schema, the user table design. So the first entry, if you see, is of type collection. This is a special type which represents that this entry represents the table itself. So somewhere system has to store, what tables you have. And then these are the fields you have in this table and their data types and other attributes. Generally, you don't prefer dictionaries, you go to tables and modules, because that's where you only see fields automatically filter based on that specific table under that related list, and you make changes. But as an admin, you should know that there's a dictionary module which shows you all the rows and columns, all the columns and tables in the system. You can filter on specific types. So I've clicked on collection, right click, and I'm doing show matching, and I'm getting rid of this table filter. So I'll click on here. So what it will show me, it's going to show me all collection type entries in dictionary. That means these are all the tables I have in system. 3,535 tables in my system. Okay. Pretty much covered everything today. Out of the box versus customization, and personalization versus configuration, tables, dictionary, and XML, list configuration and personalization, form layout. One more thing I would like to quickly share. There are smart ways to design your form. So, for example, if I go back again onto the users module and I open a particular user record so that it appears on the form, you can always configure your form not just by going to form layout. So you go to form layout and then you decide what fields you want to show on the form. Similar to lists, you can always go and change form layouts, add and remove fields which you see on the form in a specific view. Again, forms and views for a particular table will share views across. So on my essence session view, these are probably the fields I don't want to show, and I'll save it. And then when I go back in the essence session view for this form, I'll see a different layout. See, it's got a different set of fields. If I click here and I switch view and go back to the default view, I'll see a different set of fields on there. Right? So forms can also be configured as an admin. Users cannot personalize forms. I mean, they cannot add and remove fields from the form. But as an admin, I can always configure form or customize them to show and hide fields, I would like to see my users in a specific view. So configure and then go to form layout and move fields around. Similar to the way we did for lists. There's not much difference in the way you use them. You've got views here, you've got option to create fields. So you can create fields from form layouts, you can create fields from list layouts, and you can do it from the dictionary, you can do it from tables module. So as I mentioned, there are multiple ways of doing a particular thing, and that's just up to you to decide which one you want to use. That's okay. Other way of changing form layouts is through form design. I don't use it for some reason. Maybe I have been using form layout since beginning, so I'm kind of used to that. But otherwise, they have brought up this smart user interface for you to add and remove fields from the form or design forms. So if you see, we are in the default view of this table. So table here, view here, you have got all fields here. You can drag and drop fields as you wish. You can put them in a specific position. You can remove a specific field which you don't want to show. You can add sections. So if I click on that, there's another section, maybe called, I'll just give it a random name called communication, and maybe I want to move these fields from here, uh, this section. You can do that. I'll save it. So I'm making changes to default view of user form through form design. Right. If I go back, I refresh this form. So I've right clicked and there's a reload option. You can use browsers reload as well if you want. But look at the change. So we are in a default view. The view is default, if you see. And look at the changes. I added a new section and moved phone numbers there. So I've changed the layout. So you can always change form layouts to match your customer needs, to make them more, you know, uh, logically grouping fields together and making them more useful for your users. By hiding unnecessary information and showing relevant information together. You collapse sections if you want by using these arrows. All right, so with that, I think I've come towards the end of my discussion of the topics which I wanted to bring up today. I'll quickly go through the questions in the chat, and these sessions are kind of going beyond the defined timelines, but I think they're worth it. So, question number one. Is there any way if I have to roll back my changes? Yes, as I demonstrated, you can always go to the versions, select a specific version you want to roll back to, click both of them, the current version and the previous version you want to roll back to. So check both of them. From the drop down at the bottom, go to compare, and at the top you'll see an option to revert to the previous version or the selected version, and the system will perform that for you. Try that on your own. If you face a problem, let me know, drop me an email, and I'll show you in the next session how to do that. But it's pretty easy. You go to the versions related list of that particular form. From there, choose the current option, the current record which is at the top, by clicking that checkbox next to that record, and then the version you want to roll back to, and then go to drop down, compare, and there will be an option to which says roll back to selected version. Does ServiceNow record everything on everything? I mean, tables, lists, forms, or just the scripts and modules? Yes, they record everything. So as I said, everything in ServiceNow, configuration, layout changes, coding, customizations, your data, everything is stored in database in the form of XML. It stores everything. That's how when you open it, it retrieves those information and accordingly uh, presents you on the UI. They design the UI. So eventually at the end, you see it's coming in your browser as an HTML, JavaScript, and CSS. But in reality, it is storing everything in XML, and their engines are processing them as you request them from your client's browser. When you're requesting from your browsers, It goes to the server, it pulls up the information from the database, then they have got engines in between which are rendering those forms, so you're bringing that text data, converting XMLs to UI components and data which you see on screen. So yes, they store everything, scripts, modules, forms, anything and everything is there. Does customization also been put under revision history just like we have seen earlier? Yes, any changes you make are the new version and they're stored on the versions tab. So even when you upgrade your instance, that is also stored as one version. When system is updating your component, it does record that as a new version. So changes you make, changes ServiceNow makes, everything is stored as a different version, and you always see the latest version because that's the right one to be on, but you can always roll back to any previous version if you don't like. And as I said, if you are making changes to out of the box components during upgrades, system will skip them, and then you'll have to go manually and decide whether you want to accept the newer version ServiceNow has rolled out, you want to merge it, or you want to retain what you already have, the customized version, and you don't want the new thing that they've rolled out. Can we configure for some users only? No. So if you are making changes to the form layout or the list layout as an admin, if you're making changes, you're going to list layout and doing that, you're going to form layout and doing that, you're going to form design doing it as an admin, it changes it for everyone for that view. So it's important to understand a single table can be represented into different views on lists and forms. So a table, is just a way for them to store data, but eventually you see them on screen in that data in the form of a list or the form, and lists and forms can have views associated. So if you want specific view for a specific set of user, you can do that, and you can control views through roles and some other specific scripts. You can do that, and for other users you want to show probably a different view, but that's not a very standard configuration or customization that I have seen anybody doing. uh, People see views based on roles though they have. So maybe an end user, somebody who's not an admin should have a different kind of a view, and that's okay. You can have a specific view for them and uh, assign a role or decide the view. So self-service is a view which is there for end user. So there's a special view called self-service view, which is meant for end users. So any changes you make to that will be visible just to end users. Then there's a support staff view called ITIL view or default view, which you can use to make changes to the forms and list the way you want to show them to your support staffs. So accordingly, maybe you can have different views for different users, and that probably will address your requirement of having different fields on forms and lists for different users. If you want to really, if you're really talking about individual users, no, that's not the right thing to do. If a user want a different kind of a list layout, recommend them to personalize it, to add and remove fields of their choice, rather than as an admin configuring it in a specific view for everyone. How is create new field options different from the one which is created on the form? There's no difference. As I said, you can create fields on a table by going to tables module, and from there the related list of columns and adding new from there. You can change, go to list layout, add from there. You can go to form layout, add from there. It's just they let you do same operation from different areas. It's up to you which one you prefer. As an admin, always go to tables and columns section and do from there, because it gives you more control. You see a lot of other fields there, because actually it shows your dictionary form for that field, and you have those options to make it read only, mandatory, unique, and a lot of other options. But when you do it from the list layout or form layout, you just have an option to give it a name, select a type, and fill in some more additional fields like length, etc. Not much of a control there. So I prefer, or I recommend, use tables module for any of your database schema changes. It gives you more control. From which version the DB shift MySQL, what happened? Is it a freeware? So MySQL is an open source, and MariaDB is just an extension of MySQL. I would say it's a new name, but it's sort of an extension to MySQL. It's an open source database. It is used by ServiceNow. They use Java as a front end language. So the platform itself is developed in Java with MySQL or MariaDB at the backend. They made this change, I think, once they moved to Kingston release. So I think three 2 or 3 years back is when they made this change. So when they moved to Kingston, they moved to MariaDB because they realized system is growing, platform needs more space, and databases are growing, and they need better optimized engines. So they moved to MariaBase. Is it a freeware? It's, as I said, it's an open source. It is sort of a freeware, but important thing to understand here is ServiceNow will not give you direct access to these databases. They are hosted in their data centers. You will not have direct access that you go there and execute your scripts as SQL scripts on their database. That doesn't happen. You can definitely have ODBC connections from your client to that database, but not directly, like using some you know database specific client tools like you have got for SQL Server, the enterprise modules and stuff. No, they don't let you execute those scripts because they are not safe uh, to run on the database, because you might run some heavy script which might kind of put that server onto pressure, or you might unintentionally perform an operation which is not reversible. So no, but you can still run scripts from the front end, from the ServiceNow instance itself. There's a module called background script. That is where you go and run scripts, but those scripts have to be written in a specific syntax, not SQL syntaxes. ServiceNow uses different set of objects to interact with database. It's called glide record, GLIDE RECORD. I'll cover them in the future topic, but glide record is an object they use to interact with database, and you can perform queries, perform updates, inserts, deletes, all crude database operations from there. But you will not never get direct access to their databases. So they are hidden, they're abstracted from you. Collection is a type for an entry in dictionary which represents a table. So table will not have a type like string or integer. Table is a collection of fields. That's why the type is collection. If you talk about object orientation, collection used to be an array of objects. So an array of objects when clubbed together, we used to call them collection. But in ServiceNow language, collection represents dictionary entry for the table itself. Because we have to store somewhere table as an entity also, and then tell people here's a table and there are the fields. So collection represents a table in dictionary. Seems like table name which consists one or more columns for storing data. I'm sorry, I don't get that question, but I think it's related to collection. I assume each table consists of one or more columns to store data. Yes, a table should have at least one data. Otherwise, there's no sense to have a table if it's not storing anything. At least one column should be there. And it's important at this point, since we're discussing it, having custom tables. Creating your own tables, adding fields to them. These are called custom tables, and ServiceNow has got a different mechanism to charge them. So be very careful. Contact your sales partners to ensure you're not unintentionally creating tables and being charged by ServiceNow. So you have to have a contract and sales representation to talk to them to understand what will be cost implications if you are adding custom tables. Can we add sections through form layouts? Yeah, from the form layout, yes, you can. There's an option. You can try that. It's there. You can add sections. So you can go to views, and then at the bottom of the view, you'll see sections which are already there in the new option. Okay, let me quickly show that to you to avoid any confusion. It's not going to take much time, anyways. So hope you can see my screen. And right, this is the form layout. And if I right click and go to configure and form layout, slow. underneath view you see sections, right? So my user record has got, in the default view, has got two sections: user section and communication. So it's the by default on the first section, and you see all these fields in that section. If I go to communication section, this list is going to this should reload. I don't know why not, but yeah, it took a little while. But now you see fields on that section. I can remove fields and add remove fields from here. I can click on new to create new sections if I want, and then add fields to that section. So yes, you can have sections and modify them and create new sections from the form layout as well. I don't prefer that; it's a bit old-fashioned, I would say, but yeah, feel free to use it. Um, does a revision history store all the modification or just the n? No, it stores everything from the base and till now. Anything, any changes you have made. If you have made no changes, it will be empty. But if you make 1,000 changes, it's going to have 1,000 entries there. There's no limitation. Do you perform all customization in this instance? There any other developer link tool? So this instance is a personal instance, a personal developer instance. So we're making changes here. But in a real life situation, when you have a customer who's using ServiceNow, there is a stack of instances which people generally use. So stack means a collection of instances. So first instance would be your developer instance. There will be one instance which will act as your developer instance, the code base, actually the instance where developers will go in and make changes. Then those changes are bundled and ported onto the next instance, which is called generally QA instance or UAT instance or staging instance, whatever name your organization would like to give it. But there's always an instance where you can port your changes and let people test it. Your process stakeholders test it, your testers test it. And once they sign off, you move it to the live instance, which generally people call stage or live. You port your code changes there. So at I would say at least there's always three instances in a stack: developer instance, a QA staging UAT instance, and then the production or live instance. So yes, you do code changes on one instance, you port it to the next, and once signed off, you move them to the production. How you do that is using a mechanism in ServiceNow called update sets. UPDATE, update sets. Update sets are the way to capture your changes, bundle them, and then deploy them onto the next instance you would like to. We'll cover the capture, this whole exercise of capturing changes and moving them from one instance to another in an upcoming session. But yes, of course, it's part of basics, and we'll cover that. People also use tools like GitHub and some other tools which integrate very well with ServiceNow to store their code when they have multiple developers working on common components and controlling versioning. It gives them a bit more control, and then they integrate it with Visual Studio or other such IDE, the integrated development environments, because they have very rich code editors. In ServiceNow, the code editor is very basic, but if you want to use rich code editors, you put your code into source code control programs like GitHub, and then use Visual Studios to connect with them and make changes to your code. So once changes are made, they're committed to GitHub, and then GitHub from GitHub we pull or push to the instance. If you create a new table or form, do any mandatory field got create? If yes, what are the name of those fields? So now, when you create a new table, there are only 5 fields that I've seen getting created. That's called created, which stores the date and time when it was, a record in that table was created by, stores the name of the user or user ID or the reference of that user record who created that record in the table, updated and updated by. And then there's one called SysID. SysID is important because it's a 32-bit unique number which represents a single record in your system, and rather it's so unique that you'll not find that record in anywhere in any other instance as well. So they're unique way of representing the record. So data, as I said, gets stored as a record. So every instance of data, every record will have a SysID. Configuration gets stored in system as XML data, so that has got a SysID. So everything has got a SysID. So yeah, sysids are a mandatory field there. So they I would not say mandatory fields because they are not on the form for you to fill. And system when creates a record, it automatically puts that information because it generates this ID on its own. It knows who's creating it, when they are creating it, knows when they are updating it and who's doing it. So it stores all that information on its own. Other than that, if you create more fields, it's your choice to make them optional and mandatory. As per my best memory, global default fields are created on each new table. So I don't know what that global default fields mean, but I would say those five fields which I just mentioned are the ones which I've seen getting created whenever you create a new table. So those five fields are created on its own, and then you add more fields based on your requirement. You can go to tables module, try that, and let me know if it's any different. But I've seen that only those five fields are created when you create a new table. All right, guys. There were many questions today, but I hope I was able to answer most of them. Uh, I'll put this recording. It's on YouTube, and I hope you enjoyed it. We'll meet tomorrow, and we'll have a fruitful session. Thank you, guys, for joining, and my apologies for taking it beyond the stipulated time, but these things will happen because these are vast topics. We have to discuss them till we understand them, and I should be answering all your questions as well. Thank you, guys. Have a nice rest of your day, and I'll see you tomorrow.